to the channel. Now, as we have went through this little series about updating your software, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to bring some awareness to some of the problems you may have and how we work through those problems. One of the problems you have is, I've heard this said a lot, after I've updated, my settings don't work the same. They're not the same. They don't work the same, especially after I reset the sonar defaults. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to go step by step of how I find and get my settings dialed in. Now, of course, I have my favorite settings, but all those settings are just a great baseline for getting the settings you need. So what I might do is I will go through, I will set it up to my baseline settings, and then I will talk you through some adjustments I might make or you might need to make based on the water conditions and things you're seeing on the screen. So let's get into it, and this will help you get dialed back in pretty quickly. Let's go. Okay, the first thing we do, as always, after installing a new software update is we're going to reset the sonar defaults. And now doing that, it's going to default to the down position. Then it will recognize that it's in the forward position, and there it goes. So after it does that, you got to click OK. Now we're going to go through all the settings and all the gain settings, the color gains, how we like to set up our unit and everything, because what it does is it turns on all the overlay data and everything else. So the first thing and the foremost thing is to calibrate your compass. Now, I'm not going to calibrate the compass because I don't want to make the video 9 or 10 minutes long in this section, but we'll just assume the compass is calibrated. Now we're going to take it out of auto gain. Immediately, I like to go to my 65 to 68 range. 65 for the LVS 34, 68 for the 32. It's just, those numbers seem to be really on the money for me. There's very few people that I have found that it just didn't set. Now, the depth range, as always, I like to add about 8 foot to the actual bottom depth. So we'll change this one to about 30 since we're in 21 foot of water. It doesn't have to be exactly 8 foot. And if you're wondering why I do that, I have a video as to why I choose the depth range based a little bit lower than the 2 to 3 foot that a lot of people use. Now, forward range, as you know, I love 30 foot for crappie, 60 foot for bass. I may even stretch it to 70 to 80 foot with the LVS 34. But as a whole, I stay in that 60 foot range with the when I'm bass fishing. And right now we're going to go into appearance, and as you know, we're just going to set this up on the color gain of amber. You know, I love Caribbean. It's a new favorite of mine. I really like it. A moss, of course, for bright sunshine. Blue in the nighttime scheme, very, very hard to beat. I've yet to meet a client of mine who doesn't love blue, but for this whole purpose, we're going to use amber. Now, my color gain, I really like it in between 80 to 100. I'm noticing with the this new software update, it pops a little bit better, so I don't have to quite use as high of color gain in order to make everything pop. Now remember, the higher the color gain, which is just essentially color brightness, the more some of the interference and objects in the water appear. I mean, you're seeing bubbles rise up off the bottom there that weren't there just a few moments ago. And of course, color limit, and it's crazy, now the default for color limit is 0. So even Garmin believes now that pretty much the default should be 0. Now I will say this, I'm going to have to research it a little bit more, because I'm seeing the color limit doesn't quite do what it used to do. It used to really, really make it pop and look like hummingbird. But now it just seems to maybe filter out a little bit of the particles in the water. So I'm going to revisit that in a later test and see if maybe color limit does have a use now. And that could possibly, and you know me, I don't mind saying that things have changed, or I've changed my mind, or I'm trying different things. As you know, I don't like to use trails. When I will turn it on, I will turn bottom fill on to kind of let you see what they are. I'm not a huge fan of bottom fill because I think it really has a hard time discerning thick cover and rocks from the actual bottom. Now, one thing I never use except on perspective mode is the grid overlay. never use scroll history. It never really does anything for me. And I like the on-screen controls because I use the 8-foot rule with the bottom. I'm able to leave that leave that on-screen control at the bottom and it not bother anything. Reverse range, I kind of tend to use minimum. I used to use off, but now I use minimum. So noise reject, of course, I like low to medium. Ghost reject, I have never liked it. Not one time have I ever suggested it to anybody, but I like it off. I'm just going to turn the ghost reject off. I'm not a big fan of it, but I did want you to go through and see all the way the noise reject worked there. Ghost reject off, and of course TVG. You know, I'm a big fan of TVG in the low. But right now I'm going through the ghost reject. I'm just showing you that it doesn't really do a lot, but I'm a big fan of TVG in the low setting. Medium and high really filters a lot, but I think in the depth of water I fish around here, low is plenty ample. Now, the first thing I do is take that obnoxiously large depth off the screen. If I can't tell how deep it is by looking along the left-hand side, I'm probably not going to do anything anyway. So, but then a lot of times I'll leave my water temperature on or turn it off depending on the time of the year. As we're dropping in water temperature now, I like to have a constant monitoring of the water temperature. As we're in the summertime when it's just hot water temperatures, I really don't care. Definitely in the spring, the same way. I want to know the water temperature, so I'll leave it on. The unit voltage, I always like it on, but with the new ionic batteries, it's not as big of a deal. Now we're going to get into the install depth. Now, you know I love a 2-foot install depth, even if my transducer is not that low, because it slides it down the screen, which allows you to see the bait splash a little bit better and helps you find your bait in the water column and in the picture better. Now, focus, it varies from machine to machine, unit to unit. Mine, I have found that by adjusting it, you know, it just seems to be right there in that 113 range, and that really gets those lined up, those beams lined up, which makes a beautiful picture. Now, I will say that, like I told you before, this new software update is really popping. All right, guys, that right there is what I do. I go to my baseline settings. Now, some of you may ask, I don't have those baseline settings. I will put them up at the beginning of I'll put them up at the end of this video. You'll be able to save those settings. Those are my baseline settings. Those settings work great for me all the time, but they may not work great for you, but they're a great place to get started, and they're also a great place to go back to if a setting kind of gets out of whack. And that's what we want to do, is have a good starting point. So I hope that helped you. I hope that helped you kind of get dialed in. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and we'll work through those, or you can email me at thegarminguru@gmail.com. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I appreciate it. And don't forget, you know, to watch, to subscribe, to share these videos, and also ring that bell. Now, if you don't know what ring the bell means, there's a little bell right out beside where you subscribe. And what that does is that gets you a notification every time I put out a new video. I subscribe to my own page, and I got the bell rung, so I like to see it and make sure it comes up, and it does. Within an hour or so of me putting out a video, that bell is going to ring every single time. But guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. You know it. Ring the bell.